Hey, Bob, do you think we should do a show on the United States?
Well, sure. I mean, it's not foreign to us, but it might be to some of our listeners.
Well, with how things have been going on here in the last few years, I think it might be one of the strangest countries we've ever covered.
The following podcast contains graphic descriptions of international celebrating and global merrymaking. It may not be suitable for angry or unhappy audience members. Listener discretion is advised. You've been warned.
Have you ever seen any of those foreign films? I don't like them.
Some are born great, others achieve greatness, and some watch Christmas movies.
We are the wild and crazy guys.
Well, they're both festive, aren't they?
Joyeux Noel!
And we are the Festive Foreign Film Fans. Hey, Mark, can you feel it?
Oh, I can feel it. I know where you're going.
You smell it?
I smelled something this morning.
Fall is in the air, Mark.
That's it. Christmas in the air.
It's coming. I feel the coolness. I see the trees changing. I know that's not much far behind. We're going to have lights and songs and all that good stuff.
You know what else is not then? If it's getting to the Burr months, you know it's coming, right?
Football?
Football's here, right? Football's here. And then we go from football to putting on a sweater to drinking 13 beers of Halloween.
There you go. The best day. The second best month of the year, next to the 12 beers at Christmas, Mark.
Exactly.
Oh, I just, you know what? I'd love when this season comes upon us. And it's not only because it's the leading up to Christmas, but it's also just, I love fall. I do. I love it. And, you know, I think that fall, because the leaves are changing, it's anticipation and change. Don't you think? That's not what you feel?
Absolutely. You're getting ready. You're in a transition. How do you feel about pumpkin spice lattes? Are you pro PSLs or negative PSLs?
Mark, I'd bathe in PSLs. I love pumpkin spice latte. In fact, one year I think I tried like pumpkin spice everything, pumpkin spice sausage, pumpkin spice, anything I could find. And my favorite though, the pumpkin spiced beers.
Oh, believe me, right? Usually, yeah, I love the alcohol content with most pumpkin spice beers.
In fact, why aren't we having some right now?
Hey, Jake, can you pause for a moment?
Yeah, we got to run out to the store. But no, before, I thought we'd do something different. We never do this anytime, but we do get inquiries about our show. We do. And we never open the mailbag. And tonight, I think, let's open the mailbag.
Mail call. Gather around, everyone.
Mail time.
Mail time. Mail time. Mail time. Mail time.
Here's a bag of fan mail from single women, as per usual. The mail's here.
Oh, all my fan mail is disturbing. It's an occupational hazard. Last week, one of them mailed me a bag of his feces.
Here's the mail that never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want a whale mail.
We don't get a lot of input. In fact, I'm disappointed. The last review, I think, of our show is from November 2023. For all you people out there, we could use some more reviews. But we do have, we know we have some of our regular listeners. We know Howard Jensen, our Scandinavian correspondent, with his nice Amish beard. We get Jack Unverfirth. Now, Jack, he voted in our year-end polling for all the songs and movies. We know Kevin O'Malley, he's a dedicated listener, tells me every time. And then, of course, your niece, Anne Marie, who was so interested to hear her uncle say butt plug.
Interested or traumatized?
I think traumatized is probably more like it.
Her nickname's Mimi. So Mimi, I'm sorry.
Mimi, I know what Uncle Mark's going to get you for Christmas.
Oh my God, my niece. Luckily, my niece is an adult, in her 40s.
She'll be
So for all your listeners,
she'll be like, "This is a funny shaped Santa." But the real reason I wanted to open the mailbag is because there's two common questions we constantly get. I thought it's about time we address them. And the first one is, we talk about these great movies and people are like, yeah, I love it, but where do I get them? Trust me, we know we have to go out and try to find them. And you're somewhat limited because you got to find, at least we do, we have to find them with the subtitles. And peek behind the curtain, we will record our episodes a little bit ahead of when they actually air. So even though there are some really great international streaming sites for movies, a lot of times they don't show the holiday ones until December. Right. And we can never say, oh, it's on this site right now, because it's not right now. Now, there is one called Mubi. It's MUBI. That's a good one. Another source that I've looked at is colleges. A lot of colleges will offer like their libraries. Yeah, so you can look at those movies. So the one thing that we can tell you is we put on our Facebook site, we'll put all the information about the show. We'll put the IMDb link that describes the name, the year, the director, the actress, has all the information. So that could help you find the movie. And the other question that I sometimes get, and I'm sure you hear this too, is why don't we have guests on our show? I know there are a lot of podcasts where every show they have a guest, and we are not against guests. We'd love to have guests, but it's almost like I don't want to just have a guest to have somebody different.
Right.
We have themed episodes, certain countries, and we beg to get input from people that either are from that country, have customs from that country, enjoy music or any. So if there's anyone out there who would love to be a part of the show and they say, hey, you've never covered this country, but I'd love to help you contribute, we'd take them in a minute.
Absolutely.
We'd love guests. We love input. We love reviews, anything.
Absolutely.
Now, before we get to tonight's movie, we always have to cover who's going to get a free sticker. Who knew the trivia from the last episode? And if you remember, Mark, you were telling us about Senegal, and there was a special lake in Senegal, and there was a feature about it. Well, the name of the lake is Lake Retba or Lake Rose, Lac Rose, which is known by the locals. So that should give you a hint, Rose. The lake is actually pink colored. Oh, it's crazy. And it is not like a soft pink. It's a vivid, bright pink. And it's called by the Dunaliella salina bacteria. The bacteria is attracted to the lake's salt content.
Interesting.
And it produces a red pigment so it can absorb the sunlight. So it makes a bright pink color.
Wouldn't it be so cool to take a picture of that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
Maybe bring home some bacteria and toss it in your swimming pool. So tonight, we are heading back to Central Europe, Mark.
Awesome.
We're going to Slovenia. I love it because we are exploring places that, admittedly, I don't even know if I knew they existed. And that's what's exciting about it. And I don't know about you, but we got a lot of good shots of Slovenia. And there were parts of it that looked gorgeous. Yes.
Gorgeous.
Especially for Christmas.
Yes, exactly.
Just a little history on Slovenia. And this is, again, I learned it by researching this movie. It used to be part of Yugoslavia. And what they like to say is, because I guess a lot of people mix up Slovenia and Slovakia. So they like to say, our most important feature, we're not Slovakia. The history as Slovenia, as an independent nation, their history is very short. They've only been around since 1991. So they were part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And after World War I, that empire came down. Right. And so 6 countries came together to become Yugoslavia. So the 6 of these nations came together. They formed Yugoslavia. And then after World War II, Yugoslavia became a communist country. And then under communism, they banned Catholicism. Christmas was banned. And even though, again, as we've learned in some of these other countries, it didn't go away completely. People that celebrated Christmas would celebrate it privately. But then when the wall fell,
Right.
and they were freed up from Soviet domination. They gained their independence in 1991 and became Slovenia.
But it's interesting, though, those countries that have broken up and have gained their independence, just how passionate they are about their independence.
Oh, yes.
And being able to bring back into their lives things that were in their culture prior to certain things being suppressed.
And this is, and we learn a lot from this film exactly about that. And, if you think about that, independence 1991, 30 years later, so they had Christmas was prohibited, banned. 30 years later, here they have a movie.
Want to watch a Christmas movie? Christmas movies are our bread and butter.
We eat Chinese food and watch Christmas movies.
I heard it's the best Christmas movie since Home Alone.
Our movie tonight, it's a children's film, actually. And I think this is the first one we've covered that's been directed like totally a kid's film, don't you think?
I think that's right. I think as we talk through this, I think there was some elements of this that reminded me of other movies.
Yes.
But I would agree with your assessment.
Absolutely. And so it's from 2022. It's called Kapa or Beanie. Beanie, so a kappa is the hat. And so in English, it's Beanie. And it was filmed during the pandemic. So it's in the streets, the city's called Ljubljana, and that's the capital of Slovenia. And so most of the streets were empty for them. So it was almost like a giant soundstage for them.
When I was looking at watching and some research a little bit, I only saw this in one article, but somebody labeled this as the first Christmas movie ever made in that country.
Yeah, I saw that
Did
too.
you see that too?
I absolutely saw that.
And I paused. I'm like, well, that's interesting,
Isn't
right?
that
Again,
stunning.
But again, think about 30 years ago, they probably didn't even have the ability to make this movie. So
it's so interesting because there are elements of it that you have seen before. There are tropes in there that are common to kids' films. In many ways, I would say it reminded me of Home Alone. Not that the story was like Home Alone at all, but I'll tell you why. If you look at Home Alone and think about it, it could have been not that great of a movie. Has a lot of cartoonish antics in it, but what carries it off is the performances, I think. Macaulay Culkin is great, and the Wet Bandits are great, and the old man they all are sincere, they're genuine. You kind of believe their characters.
Yep. Tell us who's in the movie.
So let's talk about it. Eric is the boy who appears in this movie, and he's about 9 years old. His name is Gage Cernik. Eric, interesting about these kids because I think they both did a good job, really good job. No biography on him, nothing. The other thing they talked about he was in was a student film called The Other Side in 2018. And then he was in a television series called Our Bridges from 2020 and 2021. So he's had done a little bit of acting. And now the young girl who said she's 7 in the womb, Kaja Pedrabursik. Her name in the movie is Luchka, or Lucy Luchka. She's a brand new newcomer. This is her first time in the film. And she was the only one at the outset I thought, okay, she plays like kind of a stereotypical brat. And I thought, okay, it's going to be a little bit over the top, a little bit. But as the movie goes along, she's able to display innocence. You really start to identify with her a little bit. In this film, it starts out kind of almost, you hate to say it, but a youth home, orphanage, kind of a trope.
Yep.
There's a bullying scene.
Yep.
We've seen this before. What struck me is I first, it starts out and you see all this and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be kind of a tired retread of things that we've seen before. I think the performances really carry it off. They really do. I really felt the characters were genuine. The stereotype is the orphanage is horrible and the people that work there treat the kids horrible. That wasn't the case.
No.
It's very nice. The teacher was very tough,
right?
But she was fair with the kids and she was nice.
Like I thought it was interesting that some of them just wanted to go home, like Eric, versus some of them wanted to be adopted, right? So that was
and you're right, and that's why they call it a youth home. So it's not necessarily that they're orphans.
Right.
I think they said when the mom is talking on the phone, she's like, "We have an orphan for Christmas,"
right?
But Eric was not an orphan, as we learn. And then the movie starts out where Eric is selected. There's a family that's a more well-to-do family who invites one of the kids from the youth home to their house for Christmas. He gets selected. And so, again, you're thinking, rich, they're going to be obnoxious. He's going to teach them a lesson or something about Christmas. None of that. The parents could have been very, I thought, one-sided. They weren't. Right. I thought they were genuine. I thought they really were trying to connect with him.
Yeah.
They were affluent, but not over the top. It wasn't the Home Alone house. It was a nice house, clearly, and they had money. So he gets selected. Now, there are some things you notice right away. One is that he wears a hat, and he wears this hat all the time, and he never takes it off, even when he goes to bed. So he doesn't. He gets invited. He goes over to this house. It's not like he's difficult. He's not very talkative, and the girl is giving him a hard time. Now, the one thing is it's the bullies, and I guess again, a kind of twist on it. The bullies were bad, but not horrible.
I agree.
You know what I mean? They were kind of, the funny thing is they made him warm up the toilet seat, which I thought was
right. It wasn't, not that any bullying is good, but it wasn't a physical bullying. Right. It was more, he has to warm up the toilet seat. He has to make their beds, things like that.
But one of the things they did say is, hey, you're going to somebody's rich, bring us back something valuable. So he does initially take a necklace that he sees early on in the film. And when the mom asks him what he wants for Christmas, and this is where we learn he's not an orphan, he said he wants to go home and see his parents. That's what he really wants to do. And in fact, there's a point where he's talking about when they're decorating their tree, and he tells them that his parents have a great tree, and it's all decorated, and that, they initially goes home, he has dinner, the dad is talking to him, and the mom is talking to him, and he's getting more comfortable there. And then the girl performs on Christmas Eve, and they go to bed. I think that there is a scene. Now, I was curious. Do you think he's going to bring the necklace back, to put it back, when he gets up and he's walking?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because he takes off his hat and he takes the necklace out. Right. And I thought, I think he's going to return it. And then he sees Santa in the living room.
Interesting. That could be. I mean, he takes it. I mean, I
think he was starting to feel guilty. You know what I mean? Because they had treated him really nicely.
Exactly. And they were being welcome. It could be. I could buy into that approach.
So he goes and he's heading out to the living room, and he sees Santa Claus there. And he's like, wow. So, and he, his request of Santa was to be taken home to his family.
Right.
So he goes back into the room and starts putting his clothes on. And this wakes up Luchka, and she's like, what are you doing? You go, like, Santa's out there. Look out in the living room. Santa's gone. But the other thing is they don't notice, but we notice all the gifts are gone as well.
Yeah.
So they find Santa. They notice he's out front working on his car. And his car is full of gifts.
Yes.
Their gifts.
Right.
So they sneak and climb in the car while Santa's working on it. And they're looking at the gifts. And Luchka, she wants her puppy. She asks Santa for a puppy. And she's like, where's the puppy? She's looking around the puppy. Well, Santa hops in the car, starts it up, starts driving, lights up a cigarette.
Yep.
And I think it's starting to dawn on them that, hey, wait, this isn't Santa. And the smoke causes Luchka to cough.
Right.
Santa turns around, it's like, oh my gosh, there's kids in this car. So Santa drops them off, and they're a little bit away from the house. I'd say maybe a half mile. Eric decides he's going home. He wants to see his family, and he wants Luchka to go home. Well, it's dark. It's night. She's going to follow Eric. And at first it's uncomfortable because they don't get along. She's walking with him. He's angry. He just wants to go home. And the interesting thing about timing in this film, Mark, do you ever get a sense of what time it is? Because various things happen through the night. And I'm thinking, they left the house when their parents were sleeping, and you think it was like the middle of the night.
Right.
And they run into various people, and I'm thinking, well, is it 4 a.m? Is it 5?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, there was times where I was a little confused as well, because they're out there, they're walking around. But I wondered too, especially when because after they get out of the car, they also see another Santa.
Yes.
And they start to follow that Santa, thinking they'll get the dog or get to go home.
And that Santa goes in an apartment building.
Right.
And they decide, well, first off, one of the names they see on the buzzer is Rudolph. So they buzz Rudolph and they say Santa is there. And the person's like, oh, Santa just left. So then they decide to ring every single button. And that's where you're thinking it's late at night because the people are angry that they're buzzing them. So they take off running and they're running. And then they again are fighting and they separate. But where they are in town, it seems sinister, you know,
a little bit.
Yeah. And like, I think it's over exaggerated in their mind, you know, and she sees some rats and screams and steam comes out of the steam tunnels. And the good thing is they run back into each other. And so now they decide they're going to stick together. So Eric, obviously, I think he knows where he's going. It's hard to tell, but they're going to have to take a bus. And he realizes he doesn't have any money. Now, on the way to get to the bus stop, Luchka sees a little tree, and it's a Charlie Brown tree.
Absolutely,
it's so
Carly.
sad. And, but she, of course, loves it, picks it up, and carrying it. So then Eric's carrying it for her again, so he's nice.
You know, and at that moment too, Bob, I thought, wasn't it interesting because in her home, again, very well-to-do, but a little stuffy.
Yes.
Right? And it's
sterile.
Sterile.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's a much better word.
Yeah.
But I wondered though, when she picked that up, I'm like, why would she pick that up? But did it feel more natural, more comforting, even though it's 100% Charlie Brown Christmas tree, that she's now going to adopt this tree?
And this is where I think the movie is successful, where it has these little elements. She picks up the tree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like, it's so different from what the life she went to. He carries it for her. When they go to the bus stop, he realizes he doesn't have any money. She notices that and knows that he wants to go home. So she starts singing, "Oh, Christmas Tree." And not only does she sing it, but she puts her hands out. So people start dropping money in her hands. And this is one of the funny things. I'm like, wait, is it like 2 a.m. or something? And there's people at the bus stop and they're all giving her money and no one says, "What are you kids doing out here?" You know?
I think it's a really fair point, bro. I had the exact same thing.
So they go on the bus, and this is a tough. It's a really sad moment. So Eric gets off and he says, "This is where I live." Clearly, you can tell it's a different part of town. It is a rundown apartment building. He goes in and I don't know if it was a bar or someone having a party, but something is going on. They're loud music, and they go up to Eric's apartment, and he knocks, and the girl just tries the door and it's open, and he goes in, and he had wanted to bring his mother a gift.
Yep.
And he took it with him from the youth home, and he was carrying it there. So he goes in there and he finds his parents passed out. His dad's sitting up passed out. His mom passed out on the couch. There's a wine bottle knocked over. There's cigarette butts all over. I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't drugs there because neither one can wake up. He's trying to wake up his mom.
Yep.
They set up the Christmas tree. They put cotton on it. He goes into his old room, and you can see how pained he is. He looks around his room for a few minutes, and then he takes the lights. They set up the lights on the tree. He tries a couple of times desperately to wake up his mom. She doesn't wake up, and he just puts the gift in her hand, lights the tree. And at one point, he lights the tree, and Luchka's looking in from the window at him. All the story that he made up, I can't wait to go home and see my parents, and we have a beautiful tree all decorated. And she saw that there was nothing like that at all. Then it's both of them standing outside looking in the window.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think she really softens on him.
Well, I have to tell you that I cried when before he leaves and he goes in the bathroom and he takes the toothbrushes and like puts them together like they're a family. Like I'm like, oh my God.
Absolutely no.
Hopefully I didn't ruin that for anybody watching it. There's a lot more to it, but it was just like, just extremely tender moment.
And this is where I think they head into the city center there. Ljubljana. Beautiful buildings. They see a giant Christmas tree and they climb up under it. They see this beautiful nativity scene made out of hay.
Yeah.
So but even before they get to that, they find a 3-legged dog.
Oh, that's right.
And they're trying to decide who the dog likes better. And he's running back and forth. And Eric wants to call it Rex and she wants to call it Pom Pom, so he becomes Pom Pom Rex. They go and they kind of lay down, because it's clearly getting late, and they lay down in the nativity scene, and they're just kind of talking and looking up at the stars. And she refers to Eric as my little present.
Right.
And then the next thing you know, they have fallen asleep and they wake up on Christmas morning surrounded by a bunch of Santas, one of which was the one that robbed their house. And they're in a police station, and these are all thief Santas.
A very interesting looking group.
But fun.
Oh, funny.
Absolutely.
And
this is the thing, I even thought they could have made the cops mean. The cops were not mean at all. And she doesn't know, this is how young she is. She doesn't know where she lives.
Yep.
So the only place they could take him to is the youth home, which Eric probably told them where it was. So they go there, and cops on the way, they're talking to him, and they want to put the lights and the siren on. And they're like, well, it's early in the morning. We're not going to put the siren on, but we'll put the lights on. And all the kids at the youth home are like, the police are here. And Eric gets out, and then they bring him in, and they're trying to figure out where she lives, and they're talking. And the one cop gives Eric his hat to wear, and the bullies see that. And that kind of gives Eric the boost of confidence to stand up to the bullies.
Give him some credibility.
Yeah. And this is where it's interesting, again, how they kind of ended the movie, because the parents come, and obviously they were worried, like, what happened? Where were you? And she tells them that she sleptwalked and Eric saved her. The dog's there, and Eric can't keep the dog at the kids' home, at the youth home. So she's like, I'm keeping the dog, and they climb in the car and that. But you want, again, I don't know, you want it to end happily.
Right.
And she does. She's like, earlier in the movie when she was being more bratty, she's like, I'm not inviting you to my birthday. And her last thing to Eric is, will you come to my birthday? And he said yes. And they're waving goodbye, and they drive away, and poor Eric's standing there at the youth home. You know what I mean? It was like, I wanted it a little
more closure,
a little happier.
Yeah. Well, I guess, so what did Eric get out of the night, right? So Eric got a friend.
Yep.
Eric maybe got to see what home reality really is.
Yep.
And so maybe his longing for home, I'm sure he'll miss his parents, that, he just seemed to be so streetwise.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he got to realize being in that youth home for now was an okay thing.
Yeah.
Right. And he got like you said, he got a friend. He has Luca as a friend, who also in the very beginning, when it was discovered that a boy was coming to the Nicholas, she was like, I wanted a girl. I wanted a little girl. She wanted a younger girl. And I think she says,
at the end, what she says.
Yeah. She says, I want a dog, and I want a bigger brother. I want a big brother.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
you know what, Mark? I hadn't thought of it looking at it through that eyes. And you're right. The one thing is, he's a streetwise kid, but he's a good kid. Deep down, he's a good kid.
Awesome.
And I'm like, you know what? This maybe this gives him some hope, because I think the parents were good. And they're not perfect, but I mean, they're parents. They were like genuinely to care for him. She was, trying to bring things out, asking him questions. And so you're right. I guess that's maybe what he got out of it.
I think so.
Yeah. So what do you think? Was it festive?
Festive to the F to the E to the STIVE. So festive.
Didn't you want to be laying in that
tree?
Oh, I was thinking the nativity.
Oh, right.
Looking up at the stars.
Yeah, I would say one of the most festive movies we have reviewed.
And again, like for a travel log, it really showed off Slovenia. I mean, and it showed, like every city, there's areas that are probably not as nice as other ones, but for the most part, the older buildings and the streets, and it was just really charming.
Yep, agreed.
From a feel perspective,
awesome.
Yeah.
Like
I said, I went into it at first going, this is going to be painful, and it turned out it was charming. I love the actors. I thought the kids were very genuine. I love that they didn't no one was really a demon, even the bullies, Nobody.
Exactly.
Future.
I'll watch this again. This is a very, very good Christmas movie.
I think
it's a very good movie, but it's a very, 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 very good Christmas movie.
You know what? And it was one of those movies that, and this doesn't always happen, but I'm going along and I'm reading the subtitle and I'm not even paying. You know, like you almost think that they're speaking in English. I'm so engrossed in the story that I don't even realize they're speaking another language.
Agreed.
And would you recommend it to
Absolutely.
someone? Yeah. Well, the good thing is I'm going to teach you how to say Merry Christmas in Slovenian, but it sounds familiar, you know? And I'm starting to see, hey, I feel like I'm getting, like I'm not going to be able to start speaking the language, but no, you know, sounds like Czech, like the Czech, and probably like Slovakia too, because when you hear it, you'll say, wait, we've kind of heard this before, and it's Vesel Bosic. Vesel Bosic.
Vesel Bosic.
So, like, if you remember, I think the other one was Veselia, but they were all very similar.
Right.
I learned a couple of things, like, so there's different ways that you wish someone Merry Christmas in Slovenia. So this is the most common way. You'd say to, like, people at the store or friends, you know, hey, Vesel Bosic. But if you wanted to have a hint of congratulations in there, that root word is Srcen. Srcen. So Srcen means happy. So to congratulate someone in Slovenian on specific occasions, like, you know, like a birthday and that, you say Srcen vesel, right? And then if you want to have a more religious tone, you would say Blagoslovjen Bosic. So that's a blessed Christmas.
Gotcha.
So you can kind of say Vesel is like Merry Christmas. Srcen Bosic is Happy Christmas, like more like a happy birthday, happy, and then or Blesovjen Bosic.
Blessed Christmas.
This one, the first custom I want to talk about Slovenia with you is it's going to take a little bit of time to tell it, but it's interesting because they have 3 Santas, which is great. I mean,
lucky.
You know, I know.
Lucky.
One. So Slovenia, it's small country between Italy, Austria, Croatia, and Hungary. They have 3 different Santas, and these each reflect a different period of their history. So the first one, and this is again one we've heard in a number of countries, it's St. Nicholas. Now they call him Sveti Miklavž. And his saint day, yes, it's December 6th. Everything starts St. Nicholas Eve. They call that Miklavž. That's they have a parade. Wow. That Miklav's in, and he has, of course, little demons that come with him called Parkalagini. Their role is to frighten the kids into being obedient, and they carry chains. I love all these elements, how they do it differently, you know? So these guys, he has little demons, and they got chains.
We have Elf on the Shelf. You have chains. I like the chains approach.
Hey, yeah. No, we got to do Elf on the Shelf with chains this year.
Yes.
What happened? So that was the original Santa. They had St. Nicholas, like Miklavž. Well, when Yugoslavia becomes a communist country, they suppress Catholicism. He's a saint, right? So they get rid of Miklavž. Now, most people say he went underground. He didn't disappear, but he went underground. Now, Tito, who was the head of Yugoslavia, because they were reliant on the Russians for financial assistance, they decided to adopt. You know, he was smart politically. He's like, I'm not getting rid of St. Nicholas. Just going to replace him with Dedek Mraz.
Father Frost.
Yeah, like remember the Russian, like so. Right. Dedek Mraz. So they kept him, Dedek Mraz, but they didn't want him dressed like a Russian because Tito became disenchanted with the communists and wanted to distance himself from Russia. So they wanted to keep Dedek Mraz, but they didn't want him dressed like a Russian. So they tried to give him all kinds of different Yugoslavian outfits and, you know, several different incarnations of it. But finally, in 1952, this illustrator, a Slovenian illustrator, Maxim Gaspari, what he did was he created these postcards and he used a hunter's costume that was very common in Slovenian fairy tales. So the hunter who would, like in Little Red Riding Hood, would come to rescue. So what he wore is he had a old-fashioned pipe that was associated with this Slovenia town in the mountains. He had a long sheepskin coat that had this ancient Slovenia flower motifs on it. He was dressed like a trapper with a hat made out of dormouse fur. Trapper hat, dormouse fur, and they said, the Slovenians love that one. So they're like, that's our new Santa, Dedek Mraz. Well, come 1991, independent, they start looking toward the west instead of to the east, and they look towards Western countries, Western Europe, and they say, well, wait, they got the Santa. So now, what also is happening at this time is St. Nicholas comes back. You know what I mean? Because now they can practice Catholicism. St. Nicholas comes back. They don't get rid of, because they love Dedek Mraz because he looks like the old Slovenian hunter. But then, so they bring Santa Claus now, who's Božicek. Božicek is Santa Claus. So now they have all three of them.
Oh my gosh.
So you'll see Dedek Mraz and Santa Claus side by side. And do you remember in the movie?
That's right. They're getting coffee or a drink.
Hot dogs, sausages. Yes. And they wave to the kids. Yeah. So there's the two of them.
That's cool.
And they share the Christmas spotlight. But they still have Sveti Miklavž. They still have St. Nicholas. So how about that? So they got three of them. I love that. And I love that. I really want to see a picture of the trapper hat, dormouse fur, the Dedek Mraz. So here's some other really cool things they have there. So these huge caves there in Slovenia, and the Pastia caves. And you take a small train and they have a huge living nativity scene that they have 150 performers, 16 scenes in musical performances, all performed in the caves underground. They put lights, they have stars. So they're like, it's performed with this, natural backdrop, all the stalactites and stalagmites. Doesn't that sound so cool?
Absolutely.
And 150 performers. I don't even think there are that many people at the actual nativity. The other one too, our good friend Krampus. They have Krampus events that occur throughout Slovenia. And they have an annual parade called the Hike of the Krampus of Three Lands. And it occurs on what is called Krampus Night. And they have everybody dresses up. They put on whatever their interpretation of Krampus is. So you have a procession of hundreds of creatures, a raucous din with loud music, fire. People watch it. And so they're carrying torches. They're dressed like Krampus. And it's Krampus Night. And the idea is try to scare as many of the spectators as you can. Krampus, or Parkelj in Slovenia, and they call him Krampus. It's called Parkelj in Slovenian. He again is there to, he's created to punish the naughty children. Some of in these festivals, some of these will have, they drag balls of fire, whips of goat hairs, and once the parade's over, then they have a huge party with live music and dancing.
I mean, all right.
Is there a reason not to go to Slovenia? Can you think of one thing right now why we're not booking our tickets?
I cannot think of a reason. And I agree. Mary Ellen Sue, sponsor us on this trip, would you?
Okay. And then the last thing is just we can't go without any food. In Slovenia, no Christmas holiday is complete without the traditional potica cake. Potica. It's a pastry bread with walnut and poppy seed filling. And this reminded me, Poland, I think, had poppy seed filling. Yep. And they say that magical powers are attributed to these breads. It's believed to have been preserved since pagan times, when the arrival of light during the winter solstice was celebrated. So the bread, the sweet and decorated bread, symbolizes the wish for health and abundance in the new year. So again, it was supposed to indicate health to the parents, growth to the children, a husband for the girls, and also fattening the livestock and driving the evil spirits from the house.
That's a lot that goes in that recipe.
I love it. I love it that it's like, here, girls, you get a husband, but I guess the guys, it's just like you grow.
I guess you grow. You get fat like the cow.
You get fat. Fattening the livestock and our boys. Oh, so
wow. That's some great traditions. That whole Krampus parade.
I know, and a huge party at and I love like I think it reminds me of like people just trying to outdo each other. Right. Who can do the most craziest thing? Balls of fire and big chains and all.
This calls for some Christmas music.
Yes, this Christmas music.
What kind of Christmas music is that?
The least you could do is play some Christmas music.
And now back to Christmas music.
So what do they play? What is this loud and raucous music that they play during the Krampus event?
What is it?
I don't know. Let's see. Let's hear our music review. So that is Božicek, which is Let It Be Christmas. And Mark, I bet I fooled you at the beginning. You're like, there's no way they're playing this song at the Krampus event.
I like the
they
turn.
Fooled you.
Liked it.
So this is Anna Galovsek and Jarmash Lazar. They were musicians and they're in different bands, but then they met at a concert. They realized that they not only were a good couple, but they also performed well together. They sang. And so Jarmash plays the guitar. He doesn't sing. Anna's a singer. And they wrote this song. They decided they wanted to do an original Christmas song. He wrote the melody. She sat down, watched a bunch of Christmas movies and wrote the words to it. So, and this was written during the pandemic and released in 2021.
Great song.
Yeah, and it was. It got me moving. You know,
Yeah.
At first I love it. It was tricky at the beginning, but then it's so yeah, I'm putting on my Krampus costume and getting into that.
How about some trivia, Bob?
It's trivia. Trivia.
We've learned so many good things about Slovenia. What I like is we learn these unique details, right? And so we get so intrigued, we want to visit. We want to go there. So if you decide you're going to go, you got to bring your free sticker. So you got to win the sticker first before you go. So we had to find some things out, and I could have asked about the country's famous 10,000 caves.
Wow.
And inside those caves, weird eyeless amphibians. Or there's also something called the Bohinj Triangle.
Ooh.
It's a popular hiking and skiing destination where a number of tourists and locals have disappeared since the 1980s.
Yikes.
And people say it's either UFO encounters, the supernatural, or they're being carried off by the Polsna or the Kavarsnik, a mystical forest creature like Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I could have asked you about that. I could have asked you about how their constitution says that clean water, drinkable water, it's a fundamental right for citizens.
Wow.
How about that? Or the other thing, our former First Lady, Melania Trump, she's from Slovenia.
You sure it's not Nancy Reagan?
Yeah, I don't think so. But, Mark,
Yes.
I specifically picked this one out for you and I, the festive fans. So, in Lower Savinja Valley in Slovenia, there is a famous green gold fountain, and it celebrates the heritage of the area. And it dispenses what? What comes out of the green gold fountain in Slovenia? And Mark, by next episode, I know you're going to come with your ticket in hand for Slovenia.
Okay.
I'm going to give you you a
thinking.
quote on the way out. You think about this.
Okay.
And this quote is great because of who left it. Once you hear the quote and then you see who said it. But the best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. Helen Keller.
Wow.
So, and that's
impactful.
It is. And especially impactful when we think about what we saw in that movie tonight.
Great movie. This is the early lead for next year. Early lead.
Yes, early lead. All right. Mark, it's always fun.
Good night, Bob.
I'll call you from Slovenia.
Okay. Have a good trip.
Actually, we're done. Done.
It's over. It's over.
It's over. Kaput. Finito.
It's over. It's over. It's over.
This has been a Waysound Studio production.
And sound engineering on our show is by Jake Fontana.